and welcome back to the dumpster fire that is our podcast. I'm here to break the stigma against moms who smoke. Hi, my name is Paige. I'm a single mom of 2 kids and a cat. My passion in life is creating everything from crafts to videos to music to this very podcast. I smoke weed recreationally and to help manage symptoms of borderline personality disorder. So before I get started, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Moms Who Smoke Podcast, on Twitter at The Moms Who Smoke, and on Facebook we are Moms Who Smoke. And our podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor. And after each episode, we release a survey on SurveyMonkey where you can anonymously leave your questions and comments for us. If anybody is getting tired of that intro and maybe I don't need to do that every time, let me know, because I'm starting to feel like it's a little overdone, and that's why I'm trying to change it up a little bit. So, first of all, I just want to say, excuse the mic. I tried to get this new mic to work, finally got batteries for it, and my computer's just not playing nice, not taking it. My phone is also not playing nice and not taking it, so that's what we're dealing with. I've got my Moms Who Smoke mug here. I actually also have a Moms Who Smoke shirt, hint, hint, coming soon. Yeah, so I already said before I get started, but really before I get started. So since I last recorded, there has been some horrific events that have happened in the world. The ruthless murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, among many, many, many more, have come to light. A much past due fight for the Black Lives Matter movement is being fought by those worldwide, and we're beginning to see small changes and victories, but the fight is still very far from over. As you may have noticed, there was no new episode last week, and that was because I took the week off to not only educate myself, but also educate my children, share information, sign petitions, email my local municipality. While I didn't speak out on the podcast, I did speak out on my personal platforms. I did share one of my posts on the podcast page. Not that I'm trying to keep politics out of it, because when it comes down to it, the Black Lives Matter movement should be talked about everywhere, anywhere. There's no wrong time. I also didn't want to flood the news feed when there was already a lot of that going. I don't know. It was kind of a personal decision to only post that stuff on my page versus the podcast page. Also, I have a limited amount of free time as a single mother. And so my free time for the last week and a half has gone into researching and educating myself and finding appropriate ways to educate my kids. And that actually kind of ties into this week's episode. While I didn't post an episode last week, I was focused on trying to do my part, and I was also spinning with ideas of how to speak after such a horrific event. What I can do to help, what my words can do to help, and what the most appropriate way to speak after such a tragedy like that, or what the appropriate way is to speak. But as I have in many episodes before, I say many, we're on our 10th episode, but still, I'd like to start out with a definition. So today's word on Sesame Street is racism. So racism is defined as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed at someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. Now, if you were paying attention to the definition, the word belief is used. So let's break that down too. So a belief is something one accepts as true or real, a firmly held opinion or conviction. So what many people fail to realize is that racism is taught. You accept a belief or form an opinion. You're not born to hate another human being because of their physical appearance, culture, or religion. Those behaviors are learned. They're learned from family, from friends, from influences, media, TV shows, movies, 1,000 other things throughout your life. And I grew up hearing offhand remarks about people based on their appearance, culture, color of their skin, yada, yada, yada. Well, I don't believe that all of what I heard was with malicious intent. I, in turn, grew up thinking that a lot of these comments were okay and not racist or just jokes. And I feel that most of my adult life thus far, I've been fairly ignorant to the level of racism that still exists and what's classified as racism. I feel that I had to kind of unlearn certain ways of speaking and comments I made as I started to realize the weight that they held. And while I never considered myself a racist and have never felt the need to treat someone differently based on the color of their skin, I do feel I was extremely undereducated and probably still am. And as a privileged young white woman, regardless of the battles I've had in my life, I will never understand what a person of color goes through, has gone through, or has gone through. Um, and it's my responsibility to not only educate myself, but educate the generation that I'm helping raise. Um, so this week, I was met with many differing opinions when I spoke out about educating my children on racism at such a young age. Questions like, why would you burden them at such a young age? They don't understand anyways. Do you really think that's going to help them or hurt them? Um, I have this theory, and I think I've already mentioned it on here. It's that kids are honest. And if you ask them a serious moral-based question, 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you the God honest truth that probably most adults wouldn't even give you. And adults are afraid to say, I feel, because kids are just blunt and honest. And I don't know. I don't think that I'm doing anything wrong by educating them young. So my kids are smart, and I'm not trying to I know I'm biased and I'm not trying to gas my kids' egos, but they're smart, they're independent, and they're very, very inquisitive. They're eager to form an opinion on anything, and I mean anything, because it gets their mind working, and they honestly just love learning new things and forming their own views on things. I'm very honest. For example, my son asked me if ghosts were real, and I said, well, I believe in ghosts. And he didn't like that answer because it wasn't a concrete answer. So he went around our family and asked, and he did not get all the same answers. And then he came up and said, well, he doesn't believe in ghosts, but it's fun to think about. So right there, open and closed, he got the info he wanted, and he formed his opinion on what he believes and what he doesn't believe. Does he shame me for believing in ghosts? No, but I think he questions my sanity a little bit. Anyways, that was just an example anyway of how honest I am, and I guess how I'm very open with my kids about the fact that they are allowed to have their own opinions and their own views, and my views will not always be their views. So I'm trying to raise them so they know that they are their own person and they can make their own decisions, but this is the guidelines that I'm giving them, kind of thing. So I asked mostly Dawson, but Brooklyn was sitting too, what they thought about people who judged other people based on the color of their skin. And I knew I was about to answer 1,000 questions and probably get some answers that I'd never expect. But I started the conversation, and we talked about how people are treated differently by others based on the color of their skin, that these people who base their opinions based on the color of someone's skin are called racists, and that's called racism. That this is similar, at least in a child's mind, to people who don't believe in gay marriage or pride, which has already been a conversation in our household for years. So it was an easy one to help them kind of relate and understand. And I just feel like it was a more simplistic way to explain it to them. And they had a few questions. And while I didn't have all the answers, I did hit them with a very frequent quote in our home, which is, well, some people were raised that way, aren't nice, or don't know better. And my kids know that sometimes adults don't know better. Sometimes people who are decades and decades and decades older than you can still make mistakes and be wrong. And I think that's important for them to know that. Now, we talked about how no human should ever have to fight for equal rights, and that when they do, we need to fight too. We talked about the history and that this has been a pattern for countless years that needs to change and be fought for now. We talked about the importance of education and sharing information, the importance of treating every single human being with empathy and kindness, and not to judge based on someone's appearance, circumstance, or history. The three of us also marched in our local Black Lives Matter movement march. I don't know how to say that. The March for the Black Lives Matter movement. And along with a lot of people in our town. And that was really empowering for not only myself, but the kids. And it was a massive learning experience. And I'd like to say that this was not all done in one sitting, and this was done in a very age-appropriate way. From the day after George Floyd's passing up until today, it's been a conversation. It will continue to be a conversation. Um, at first, I kind of struggled with how to explain to them, what was going on and if they would really understand. And luckily, along with this movement, there's been so much information and resources shared that it's so simple to find the right information to help teach your kids about racism. It's as simple as Googling books about race and racism for kids. Some ones that I used in order to explain it to my kids were the show That's So Raven, season 3, episode 10. It's available on Disney Plus, and I'm sure, anybody else who's close to my age knows what That's So Raven is. And it was bomb, and it's worth watching anyways. So it's about Raven and Chelsea applying for a job, and while Raven aces the interview, Chelsea does not ace the interview, but then Chelsea gets hired and Raven does not. It's a really good, I don't know, it's put in simple terms and plainly enough that the kids see it for how it is, and I think that's important. There's also a CNN special with Sesame Street. A few books are Malcolm Little by I really don't want to say these names wrong. Malcolm Little by Ilyasah Shabazz and illustrated by A.G. Ford. Happy in Our Skin by Fran Manushkin and illustrated by Tobia. And Let It Shine by Andrea Davis Pinkney and illustrated by Stephen Alcorn. Sorry if I butchered any of those names. They're good children's books to help teach kids about race and racism. Like I said, there's also many more if you just Google books about race and racism for kids. And yeah, I guess my point in sharing all of this is to reiterate the fact that racism is still extremely present. And two, that it is a learned and taught behavior. It's not something that we're born with. It's something that unfortunately was so prevalent around us growing up, but never in the right light, if that makes sense. I just because we may have been misinformed, undereducated, or just plain ignorant to the reality of these issues before now, does not mean that we can't or shouldn't be fighting for the Black Lives Matter movement, fighting against the injustices, the murders, and the ignorance of the past. We are responsible as the majority, as the privileged, to fight for those without what we so easily take for granted. Any minority we should be fighting to the end for. There's no reason that any human being should be treated any differently. And it's really important, especially the parents that are listening. We're raising the next generation. These kids are going to be adults one day and running our world. And if we can raise children who believe in equality, who believe in fighting for injustices, who believe that their voice matters and that one voice matters, we're going to be in a hell of a lot better place than we are right now, 30 years from now. And while this is going to be a long fight and it's far from over, and I think it's very obvious that it's far from over, it's important that we keep fighting and that we teach our kids to fight and that we show them this. We are literally walking through a history book right now, and we need to make this the chapter that abolishes all of these inequalities and all of these horrible, horrible acts that have gone on for so many years. I will be leaving links to donate to George Floyd's family, Breonna Taylor's Change.org petition, and the Black Lives Matter website down below, where there are more information, donation links, and ways you can support, as well as a few other resources that I have found. I will leave linked below. I do want to continue to kind of chat. That's all I really had to say about the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm trying to be very careful in what I'm saying and just, speak from the heart, I guess, because I know that I am not the best person to be speaking on this, obviously. But I think it's important to share my opinions and my views and the ways that I feel I'm helping my children and helping them have a better future, if that makes sense. So, yeah. So I'm going to do my weekly check-in because it's been 2 weeks. if you guys have been paying attention, I've done about 10 episodes now. I kind of go through cycles. So I have 2 to 3 really good weeks, and then I have a rough week or two. And it's almost comical sometimes how easily I can call it out. Um, but things have been going really well. I'm finding my balance and finding the things that I enjoy. And I'm also working really hard to take a step back and live a more peaceful life. And what I mean by that is not being rushed around doing tasks throughout the day and feeling panicked all the time. I'm trying to do everything with a sense of calm and a state of calm. And that's really been helping me. So I've also gone into my doctor and I got referred to a clinic here. There were some issues with the paperwork, so we had to redo it. So unfortunately, it was a bit of a delay. Um, but hopefully that will go through. That's in the process right now. I am still kind of working on my workbook. I do need to dedicate myself more to it. Um, but things are going well. The kids are doing really, really well. Dawson is turning 6 in a week and a half, and I cannot believe that it's been 6 years since I had that little boy. And I'm so excited. We're having a Star Wars themed birthday. Um, he's so stoked. And I'm going to throw a mask on him and we're going to go to either Toys R Us or Walmart and he's going to pick out his birthday present. I did get him a few things, but just so he feels, I don't know, kind of special. We haven't been able to go out for a long time, so I'm really looking forward to taking him out and him enjoying, um, I don't know, being in a store for the first time in a long time. So, yeah, that's kind of all I have for this episode, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, I hope that you're all doing well during this time. And don't forget that it is perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. But it's perfectly okay to take a break from the news and to take a step back and focus on you. Yes, these world issues need our focus and need our voice, but we're important too, and our mental health and physical health and just state of being is very important, and we need to make sure we're okay so that we can fight for these other causes and give these other things our energy that absolutely need them. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys. It's been our dumpster fire. I should rip a bowl on camera. Ow.